So let's start with Neuer. Neuer for me is in S class. He's an absolutely fantastic, I have to say. Absolutely fantastic. One of his strongest months, and at the end of the day, quite frankly, he is the reason why we've won so many games. You know, so many games that could have been losses, so many games that could have been draws, so on and so forth. Then he's always been the reason why we've been winning those or drawing those games. Now, I will say as well, this is one of Neuer's better season, in one of his best forms as well, and hopefully he can keep that up. Nothing that he really needs to improve on. He is in the highest tier, in the S tier. Let's change the name. Let's call it top tier. Then let's call this. You know what? Let's call this. Damn it. I don't want to put flawless, but let's call it flawless. Great, but needs to great, but can be better. Let's call this good. Yeah, actually, let's just call it good. Let's call this poor, and this one bad. Simple. Also, the image for Neuer is kind of off. I do realize that, but it is what it is. Sometimes it just happens. But yeah, Neuer for me has been absolutely flawless. You know, I think he's been saving our bacon for way too much, and he's been absolutely fantastic. Alaba in the month of November for me, honestly, has been anywhere between good and great. I would say he's probably at the top of good, at the bottom of great, if we were to actually rank it in that sense. His distribution has been very good. You know what? I'll put him at the bottom of great. These will all be ordered as well. But like his distribution has been good, and if this, you know, in October he was poor, but he's gotten a lot significantly better. So there's still some errors of his game here and there, which is actually quite uncharacteristic of him. There are still some errors here and there, but in a grand scope of things, I do think that he's significantly improved from October. And I do think that while he's not, you know, as good as he's ever been, or not anywhere close to it, which is probably why I'm actually putting him here at the top of good, he is clearly getting better, and he's taking more responsibility, which I also like to see. So for me, he is at the top of good, or bottom of great, but I'm leaning more towards top of good rather than bottom of great, but can be better. You know what? Let's just leave it at great, because I mean that's kind of, you know, if you're not flawless, you can always get better. So this way, it's easiest to understand and easiest to see as well. So Alba for me is probably at the, you know, probably at the either at the top of good or maybe like halfway through good. We'll see how it obviously pans out. Boateng. You know what? I'd put Boateng in great. Obviously, you know, Boateng is not on the flawless stage where he once was, where he was absolutely, you know, he was the world beater, one of the best centre backs in the world, if not the best centre back in the world. But he is slowly getting there. He is getting better and better. You know, despite his age, it's not like he's necessarily, you know, getting to his peak performance, but it's also not, he's not a liability in the squad. At most times, I would actually say he's probably our best centre back at the moment, and that says a lot. You know, a player that many people have written off last season came back and is now one of our better centre backs, if not our best current centre back. So from that perspective, he for me is absolutely for me is, you know, he is very much centrally in the great aspect. I wouldn't put him at flawless. Again, I think the one thing I actually quite think he's lacking at the moment is his distribution, which is kind of crazy considering that that's what I would say he was very much known for. But yeah, for me personally, I would put him at great. Obviously, there are some aspects of his game that he could be better at, here and so forth. But in the grand scheme of things, I do think his performance warrant a great ranking. Choupo-Moting, you know what? I'm gonna add a another row below, which is basically didn't play enough, or not enough data, whatever you want to call it. Choupo-Moting would go right there. Didn't play enough or not enough data. and there we go. We'll do it like that. Choupo-Moting basically goes there. You know, he played a few games, but like he didn't play near enough. Like he didn't play enough games where I can be like, yeah, you know what, you should be here and there. I can't really say that for him because he came in, you know, a few substitute appearances here and there, but like it's not like he really played a couple 90-minute games. So from that perspective, I will say he probably goes right here. You've got Coman. I'll put Coman in flawless, honestly. I think he's been absolutely fantastic. Our best winger this season. And quite frankly, I think, you know, he should be getting praised a lot more because he has been that good. He has been that strong. You know, there are two other players that I'm thinking of that can go in the flawless category for now. But Coman is definitely one of them. I would put him below Neuer, which kind of, you know, you're ranking flawless. I know it's a difficult thing, you know, but then you put someone above everyone else. But I do think Neuer has probably been our best player in the month of November, but Coman is in the flawless category, but it's just not ahead of Neuer. If he can keep this form up, I see a great career for him. Now, the only thing is obviously that a lot of times he will play great for a few minutes, you know, not just minutes, a few weeks or so, and then he'll his quality will decrease. So all I'm hoping for is consistency from him from here on out. You know, if he can keep that same level that he's been keeping in the month of November, then I do think that, you know, we can look forward to a brilliant season with him. But we'll see how that goes. Costa. Honestly, Costa, I could put him in didn't play enough, not enough data. But I think with Costa, I'm actually going to put him at the very bottom of poor. At the very top of poor and the very bottom of good. So like kind of like the bridging player between those two. He's played a few minutes. He's played, you know, a few games. He also scored a goal, but in the grand scheme of things, I don't think he really. I'm saying that phrase way too much. But like I don't think he's really played. He's really done enough when he's played, and that's my criticism of him. That like I don't think he's been nearly productive enough. I don't think he's been good enough as a winger, you know, beating your men and then, you know, playing the ball, creating chance. I don't think he's been good enough in that sense. So from that perspective, I do want to say that Costa is probably at the top of poor. That's where in that case, there's not really a bad player. Now that I'm thinking about it, like there's not really a bad player per se, you know, but yeah, you know what? Let's put him at bad, just so we actually have a bad player. Like this would bad would probably be like a 6, you know, a 6 out of 10 rating, 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10, and 10 out of 10. Yeah, I think that's actually a good way to look at it. So he would probably be in a bad. We'll get to Flick last. I want to get to Flick last. Who is that? The images are very tiny for me. I think that's Gnabry. Gnabry for me, honestly, I'd probably put him at bad as well. This month he's really not done much. Like he's really not done much. I think throughout the whole season so far, in all the games that he's played, he has been one of our players that has played the most. He has been involved in 4 goals, and 3 of them came against Schalke on match day 1. He's just going for a very rough period at the moment. Like he is just not. His overall play is okay. It's not like necessarily like, you know, great or good or anything of that sort. It's just okay. It's not necessarily bad either. It's just okay. But because he's not been productive at all, which is pretty much his strength, you know, he is a player that I would say is less of a winger and more of a second or third striker. And because his numbers aren't there, like he's not, you know, contributing to the goals. You know, and he's not a traditional winger, who beats the men with like pace and whatnot, and then whips in a cross or something. He's not really that. He's someone that like beats the player and then tries to score or tries to assist. And because it hasn't happened, he's been quite poor defensively. I'll say yeah, he's been quite good. But when your job as a winger, you know, is to primarily, you know, score or assist or create chances, and then you don't really do that, then I'll have to put you in a bad scoring. I do hope that though, because he's a player that, you know, last season was in a similar manner where, like, you know, a few games he'd kind of go missing, and then like he'd have a few games, like 2 or 3 games where he'd be absolutely fantastic, and then he'd go missing for a month again. So I do hope, my big hope for the, you know, beginning of the season was that he'd be more consistent. So far that's not necessarily been the case, but I do have high hopes that, you know, he can improve. Next up is that Goretzka. It looks like Goretzka. Goretzka, is in the great category. Obviously, once Kimmich got injured, Goretzka kind of had to step up, and you know what? He stepped up fantastically. He stepped up brilliantly. I have to say, Goretzka, I mean, he's been fantastic at the beginning of the season. He's been fantastic. Is that better? I think that might be better. He's been fantastic at the beginning of the season. He's been fantastic halfway through the season now. I don't think he's really been bad. I don't think he's had a bad performance per se. I think he's always been very, very solid. He puts in a tremendous shift. He gets a lot of goals. He gets a lot of assists. He's always in dangerous areas. He controls the midfield. He goes, helps out the defensive side. He goes, helps out the offensive side. He just helps out all the sides. And quite frankly, I think that he has been, obviously Kimmich was injured very much at the beginning of the month, but I do think that Goretzka has been just fantastic, absolutely fantastic. And honestly, I hope he keeps it up, because he is, in my opinion, currently our most important midfielder. I know Kimmich is out, that's why I'm saying that. Besides Kimmich, I would say he is our most important midfielder. And the fact that he took over that torch and then kind of ran with it, for me, says a lot about Goretzka and a lot about his leadership qualities. The only thing that I think he needs to do is a little bit, sometimes slow it down. He's a little bit like a train, where he just kind of, well, actually, a train is probably a bad comparison to make. He's pretty much like a boulder rolling down a hill, where like he just picks up speed, but then really doesn't slow down until the game is over. And I feel like he sometimes needs to slow the match down, slow himself down. If the team is leading, we don't need to necessarily be 100% aggressive. Conserve your strength, conserve your energy. Maybe slow down the play so the other team doesn't feel as comfortable, and just create, have more dominance in the game. And that's kind of what could push him from like a great to a flawless category. That's my take on that. Next up, Javi. Javi, to me, honestly, has been good. He's been good. He's for a player that a lot of people thought would leave Bayern at the beginning of this season. I think he's actually been very good. He's been playing a lot of games, obviously with the injuries that we've had in the Champions League as well as in the Bundesliga. And I think he hasn't really had necessarily a terrible performance, I'd say. One standout performance, not performance perhaps, but he got the assist for the Kimmich goal as well. Little things like that. I know it's not the most important thing, and that was against Lokomotiv Moscow, I believe, as well. So I'm getting my month mixed up here. But Javi has been very, very strong. He's been on the ball a lot. He's been defensively solid. The only thing is that his passing range is quite limited. His offensive contributions are quite limited. And quite frankly, he's just there because he's just there right now as like a defensive wall, allowing our other players to be more creative. But it's clear that Flick himself wants to have midfielders that can attack and defend simultaneously. And right now, Javi is just a little bit limited in the attacking phase, but he's very, very solid in the defensive phase. So I'm just going to give him a good overall. Next up, all right, took a little break there. Next up, Kimmich. So Kimmich, obviously he got injured in the month of November, but he did play the first game against Salzburg, the 2-6 victory, kind of crazy victory. I'll tell you right now, I'm putting him in great, probably ahead of Goretzka, just about. Obviously, we won the game against RB Salzburg. Red Bull Salzburg, 6-2. And then the following game against Borussia Dortmund, he was the player that got injured after quite a reckless tackle by him, to be quite honest. But from those two performances, I will say he was great. If this was the ranking for October, I would have put him in flawless. But considering that the game against Salzburg, we kind of lost control, and that's kind of what he's very good at. But then also we kind of gained control towards the end when we actually started scoring, when they got tired. I have to kind of give him like a poor maybe for the first half, and then pretty much a great for the second half. But then considering how the game ended with a 2-6 victory, and the fact that he assisted Boateng, he assisted Sane, for the goals, you really have to wonder what rating is actually fair here. So I think a grade for that for that particular game against Salzburg, and then the game against Dortmund, probably, I put him below grades, because the game against Dortmund, the foul that he sustained, honestly, he was at fault, because the way he stretched, it was quite a dangerous challenge. So from that perspective, I'd want to give him a grade, probably the bottom of grade. That's where I'll put Kimmich for the month of November. Kwasi, honestly, or Tanguy Nianzou, I'll probably put him in didn't play enough, or slash not enough data. He only came on for a bit. I thought he looked quite solid in that debut that he had for Bayern. I probably would put him at like good, but it wasn't really near enough. It was just a very limited performance. Then we move on to Lewandowski. Lewandowski was quite a difficult one for me to rank. I was actually looking through like all the stats and whatnot, because usually I'm not so much. Usually I don't look at stats that much, but with Lewandowski I kind of was forced to, because Lewandowski is a striker first and foremost, and he's one of the few players that I was going to put. I was debating whether I should put in great or flawless. But I decided to put him in the flawless category. And the reason for that is he essentially won us the game against Dortmund, which was obviously a very important clash. Could have potentially scored more. Obviously, he was offside by like a hair's breadth. But, you really got to look at that game and be like, nah, perhaps. But then you look at the Salzburg games and you can say, what, fair enough. He should be in the flawless category. But I don't think necessarily like he was our best player. I the order that it's currently in, I actually believe that's the correct order, because I think Coman was definitely better this month, whereas Lewandowski was better in the first month. I think Lewandowski was better in October, but I do think that for the month of November, that Coman and Neuer, terrible picture of Neuer, honestly, I should probably change that picture later on, but you know who that is. There's only one keeper here, because Nubel didn't play in November. Just from that perspective, you have to say that Lewandowski probably deserves to be in flawless, or maybe at the very top of great, bottom of flawless, top of great. That's kind of where I would put Lewandowski. For now, I'll leave him in flawless, because I'm being quite generous, because he creates a lot as well, and for a striker, that's very good. He's always involved in our play in terms of pressing, in terms of playing. So for me, he deserves to be in the flawless category, at the bottom of the flawless category. Lucas Hernandez, I put in great. I think just above Boateng. I think I do it like that. I think that's the order I would have the grade category in. Lucas Hernandez, I feel like almost he's a little bit overrated at the moment, because everyone knows how good he has been. Everyone has seen how good he's been, this season. But I don't think he's been in the flawless category. I think like he's been very, very solid. I think he's been very, very good. Obviously he got his very first Bayern goal, against Salzburg, but I also think that while he's been playing as a left back primarily, and while defensively he's been very, very strong, I feel like offensively he's quite lacking. And I know I'm saying that, and then he created the assist for Lewandowski against Dortmund. He's, as I just mentioned, he scored against Salzburg. But I do think, considering how often he gets forward, I don't think his offensive contribution is near enough. And that's obviously something that he can work on. Obviously, he used to play in Atletico Madrid, where as a fullback, you're not really playing that much offensively. Your job first and foremost is to defend. And while he's been very, very great at that, I think most people would probably say he's been probably in the flawless category for that. I don't think his offensive contributions are nearly good enough for me to warrant putting in flawless category. Now, if he was just a centre back, if he was just playing primarily as a centre back, I would have said fair enough, flawless. But because he's playing as a full back, he's playing as a left back, your duty is also to help out offensively, and that's where I will say that he hasn't impressed me too much. So for me, because of his defensive contributions, I would put him in the great category. Next up, Jamal Musiala. Difficult to rank. Difficult to rank. I'll probably put him in like they didn't play enough, not enough data. Is that fair? I'm thinking right now. Let me have a quick look at all the stats, because I know what I would put him in terms of like how I perceive him to have played this month, but I actually want to see how many minutes he's had. Whether, I want them to have at least 90 minutes. Yeah, that's my criteria, I guess, if you want to call it that. To have played at least 90 minutes, and if he hasn't done that, then I don't want to necessarily rank him, because I feel like you need to have at least 90 minutes for to be able to accurately gauge in like a broad sense of the spectrum. So he played against, yeah, that's exactly what I thought. 63 minutes against Werder Bremen. You know what? I don't think he's played 90 minutes this month. But I will, no, I don't want to do an exception, because if I do an exception for him, I'm going to have to do an exception for everyone else. So I will say this, I'll put him in a didn't play enough, not enough data. Where I think he was, I think probably in like the good category for this month. He's had better months, honestly, at Bayern. I think October, he was definitely better. If I were to rank him, I know he didn't play near enough, but like if I were to rank him, I'd probably put him like here. Bottom of good, probably. Yeah, very solid touches, but I think a little bit what he's lacking, honestly, is that killer instinct, and it's very difficult to find like a killer instinct to create an assist. Like, he's got those skills to really get past players, but I feel like sometimes he does it a bit too much, and then other times I think he doesn't do it enough. It's like that killer instinct slash decision making that he kind of needs to work on. I don't think it necessarily like his shooting is bad. I don't think his passing is bad. I don't think his crossing. In fact, we've not seen too much of his crossing, but I don't think any of those attributes are bad from him. I just think that he needs to pick his passes better. He needs to pick his shots better. I think he needs to pick his dribbles better, and I think if he does that, he's still a very young player. If he does that, he's most certainly going to light the world on fire. Pavard, good. Pavard has been good. Pavard honestly has been quite a disappointment this season. Honestly, I don't know what it is. Like, he's in the previous month, I would have put him in poor. I'll be quite honest, I would have put him in poor. But in November, he's been good. He's not really been necessarily bad or anything of that sort. He's just been good. But he doesn't contribute enough. He just doesn't contribute enough at the moment, and that's my issue. Like, defensively, he has errors in him. Offensively, he is okay. Like, there are games, was it against Lokomotiv Moscow, I believe, where, he created opportunities, where he created the goal for Goretzka, but he doesn't do it consistently enough, and that's my issue. Like, he's just good at the moment, and I hope he improves. I hope he gets back to like his level that we all know he can reach, like, that we know that he reached last season, but I can't really give him higher than good at the moment. Obviously didn't play enough. Raka also didn't really play enough. From the one game, I'd probably give him like a good. From that one game that he played, I think he overall played a great game, but because of the red card, I'd probably put it at good. But he just didn't play enough, and that's really what it boils down to. He just didn't play enough, not enough data. Sane. I'd probably put it great. I know he really didn't really start many games. Difficult. Above Boateng or below Boateng? I'd probably put him above Boateng. Obviously didn't really, start games, but like whenever he's come on, he scored goals. If you look back at the first game of the month of November, we played against Salzburg, Red Bull Salzburg, the game that we won 2-6, and he came on and he scored. The kind of thing that you need to have from a player, that a player that comes on, scores, almost like an impact sub, I guess, but like he's also assists plenty. And you know what? He's been doing that so consistently. I'm thinking, no, I think great is fine. Like, he's been doing it so consistently where he comes in and then gets a goal or an assist, but I don't think because he hasn't really shown that over 90 minutes, except obviously against Schalke, but he hasn't really shown that over 90 minutes. I can't put him any higher than that. I was considering where I should move him up maybe, but no, I think right here is around, it's around fine. That's pretty much the place that is. And if you really want to like look at it in more details, you could say like 10.10. 10 out of 10, like a full 10 out of 10. Then he goes like 9.9, 9.8, and then he goes like here, that being a 9, 8.9, 8.8, 8.7, 8.6, and then you go to here, that being an, flawless 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10 to 9 out of 10. Does that make sense? If you really want to, like, I don't think you need all that, to be completely honest. I think that just makes it more complicated. 9 out of 10 to 8 out of 10. Does it make it more complicated? I don't know. I really don't know. It doesn't look that great, though. There we go. There we go. So maybe that makes it better. I don't know. But yeah, that's roughly where I'd put him. That's roughly where I put Sané. Sa. Do we even need a poor? Because I haven't put a single player in poor, and I won't be put from the list of players that I have here. I won't be putting a single player in poor. So is there really a need to? Okay. There we go. We'll leave it at this then, because there won't be a single player in poor. Sa, I'd probably put at good, below Pavard. And again, Pavard hasn't really been that great, but I think Sa hasn't really been that great either. He's had very shaky performances, I have to say. Very shaky performances. Like last month, in October, I actually thought he had pretty good performances. But in the month of November, I really can't say that. I think he's probably at like the good category. And it's still early days, so I'm not too worried about that per se. But, where I would put him, I'd probably put him at like this territory right here. This place right here. Next up, Sule. Probably right here. Yeah, probably right there, I have to say. Who did he... Let me have a look. Let me think. Because... I think I'm actually right. Yeah. Is that? I think that makes sense. So I'm trying to think. I'm not trying to like let the game yesterday against Atletico Madrid judge my cloud my judgment. Got that mixed up. But like he hasn't played. Okay, so that's just my mistake then. He hasn't played. He'd go in a didn't play enough, not enough data category. Thomas Müller. Difficult. Actually difficult. I'd put Müller in the great category, top of great. Top of great, that's where I would put Müller. Müller, always a threat. Müller, always dangerous. Müller has been very, very productive. Really, really productive, I have to say. And just looking at the games he basically play. Whenever we win, whenever we play a big game, whenever we play an important game, Müller is there, and that's what's important. That is what is important, because it just shows you that Bayern, I wouldn't say it necessarily relies on Müller or anything of that sort, but when you look at our results, he's always involved some way, some shape, or in some manner. You look at the game against Dortmund, he scored. You look at the game against Stuttgart, he scored. You look at the performances that we've had against other teams as well. He's always been there or thereabouts, but I wouldn't say he's been as good as, like, say, Coman, Neuer, or Lewandowski. I just think he's been an all-round important player. Last season, I would have said he's probably been our most important player. This season, not so much. But this season, he's still a very, very important player in that perspective, where, whenever we build, whenever we attack, whenever we try and move forward, whenever we try and defend, he is there. He's the first person that's there. He's the first person that helps out in those areas. So I think it's fair for me to put him. Yeah, I would say it's fair for me to put him where I did. I'm really debating right now whether I should put him higher or lower, but I think it's actually quite fair for me to put him at the position that I did. Now, Tolisso. He played against Salzburg. He played against Dortmund. And he played against Stuttgart. Overall, I quite like his performance against Salzburg. I know it wasn't necessarily the best game from Bayern, but that's because Salzburg had such high intensity. But I actually quite liked his performance against them in that game. But he's not really been great. Has it been bad? No. Has it been great? No. He's been good. I know that much. I don't know whereabouts. Like, I put him anywhere between from like here to here. And I think where I would put him is probably right around here, behind Alaba. He's just been decent. That's really, like there's nothing wrong with Tolisso, but he hasn't really excelled. He hasn't really, changed the game by himself or anything of that sort, or maybe like contributed to a game changing. Like, if the team has been good, he's been good. If the team has been bad, he's been bad. That's kind of what it is. Like, if the team had a bad phase, he didn't really try and make it any better. If the team had a good phase, it wasn't really because of him. In that sense, it's just like, if the team is playing well, he's playing well. If the team is playing bad, he's playing bad. And that's why I put him that's why I put him like right around here. On a good performance, he could go up. On a bad performance, he could go down. Granted, this is one if we didn't have that many good performances, but in the grand scheme of things, I think there's probably a fair placement to put him. And last but not least, Hansi Flick. Now, when you're speaking about Hansi Flick, obviously you have to look at the results. You have to look at the results and the context behind it. So, first of all, we played Salzburg, which won 6-2. Very difficult game, but we won it in grand style. Once they got tired, we pounced. Then, next up, the clash against Dortmund. We won that game 3-2, so another victory. Then against Werder Bremen, 1-1 draw, and honestly, we should have lost that game. Then against Salzburg, we won that 3-1. Good result. Stuttgart, we won that 3-1. Good result. Maybe not that good performance. I will say that. Not that good of a performance. So we've had 2, 4, 5 games. And out of those 5 games, I would say we had 2 good performances, 1 clinical performance, and 2 bad performances. Do I think like he's done anything wrong tactically? Like, there are personal opinions that I have, but opinions that there are opinions that I have that if I had more insight into the squad, I could justify, or I could say, okay, he's justified in what he's doing. But I don't have that insight into the squad. So, like, for example, I would have played Mark Rocha a little bit more, because especially now with, like, the injuries that we have, I'm like, you know what, we should have. Now he would have been perfect. Or I would have, no, I actually think Mark Rocha is about the one player that I'm thinking at, because I was going to say Kwasi, but he's not really been injured. He's not really been healthy that much. Musiala perhaps a little bit more, but I think with so much attacking talent and so much maybe not midfield in this present moment, but attacking wise, I think it's fine for a 17-year-old to get as many minutes as he has already gotten. So I would probably put Flick in the if we're just looking at performance, like not just results, but like performance and results and everything else. We're not just looking at results. Looking at results is kind of, that's a cheap way of doing it. All right, that's not really useful. Not really useful. I know our club is built all around results, but if I were to put him anywhere, I'd probably put him in great. I'd probably put him in great. Bottom of great. That's kind of where I would put him. That's my opinion on that situation. This is kind of my list right now. I want to do these once a month. Obviously, this one, let's not kid ourselves. This one is all over the place. It's all over the place, like, but I do want to, like, start doing these more, and the more I do them, the more accustomed I get to doing it, the more seamless it'll go, and the more the quicker it will go as well, and the more fluid everything will happen. So while this one was a little bit rocky, I'll be honest, it wasn't the greatest list, it wasn't the greatest video, perhaps maybe not the most entertaining. There was a bunch of should I put him here, should I put him there, but now that we've started this, I'm going to try and do this as a series, and we'll see what I decide to do from here on out. But that's all I have to say, though, ladies and gentlemen. Let me know what you all think. I will be seeing all of you in the next video. Everyone, until then, have a nice day. Peace out, and as always,